define success? There are lots of definitions that people have of success. The one that I use is very simple, and that is an improved result. In other words, we want something to be better. Either we want to be better off tomorrow than we are today, we want our businesses to be better, or we want our relationships to be better. But at the basic element is some type of result, and that is a measure of success. This was developed by a team of consultants that I've been affiliated with years ago called the Formula for Success. And it starts from the right side. And let's say we have an improved result. Now, that improved result could be related to revenue, meaning our business, or that improved result could be related to fitness, so our health and our bodies. So in order to get that improved result, we need what we call a positive behavior change. So we can't continue to do the things that we've been doing and expect some type of improvement. And so when we say positive, it's more the correlation between our actions and our desired outcome. So here's where the formula comes in. In order to really establish success, we have to set goals. By the way, we are goal seekers. Humans and adults and even children are goal seekers by nature. By the way, as we are pursuing goals, that has a profound effect on our mood, on our outlook, and on our mindset. But we'll get into that momentarily. So we have to set goals. The other thing we have to do, depending on the complexity of our desired outcome, that improved result, we'll have to improve our skills and our knowledge. Skills are applied knowledge. So knowledge is something that we can acquire, something that we can learn. Skills are those things that we can develop through practice and through applying. And so that's why those two are kind of related. We could definitely see the overlap between being knowledgeable and being skillful. But our skills, or the level of skills, really increases when things become second nature, when we have to do something and we don't really have to think about it. That's when we're very much skillful at it. Then it's what I call the great multiplier, and that is attitude. And so here is where the behavior, where the success formula really applies. We could be extremely skillful and knowledgeable in a specific discipline. But if our attitude is not in alignment with our desired results, we're not going to hit the desired result. So, for example, I'm sure many of us have had coworkers or other people that we've been around who kind of knew what to do, knew how to do things, but their attitude just wasn't really the right attitude to get where they wanted to be. A classic example is our attitude about selling. A lot of people feel as though they're not good salespeople. And so if that's our attitude, that is going to reflect in our behavior. And we could read a lot of books and we could practice. But then if our attitude is not in alignment, we're not going to get the sales that we need. Likewise, just marketing and other things. A definition that I often use is our attitudes are our habits of thought, or our thought patterns. And our attitudes are really based on our life experiences, and our life experiences are grounded on our values and our beliefs. Those things that are extremely important to us, those things that we stand for. And our attitudes really shape our perspectives, how we see the world, our perspectives about our clients, our customers, as well as our opportunities. The challenge here is that according to psychologists, approximately 88% of how we behave, the things we do, are below the conscious level. So so many things that we do are subconscious. Likewise, our perspectives, our attitudes are subconscious. And it's really a function of our upbringing, our life experiences, and our conditioning. And so it's not easy to change or develop your attitude. You can with intent, but it's not an easy thing. More about the attitude. Our attitude drives our behavior. All right. So how we see the world, how we think, that drives the things that we do and our actions. So our attitude kind of determines or drives our behavior. What does our behavior drive? Our results. Let's say if my desired result is to lose, let's say 10 pounds. Do I focus on my attitude or do I focus on my behavior? Definitely both, but more on the attitude. Because the thing about behavior, we could change our behavior in a day. We just won't sustain it as a habit unless we adjust the attitude. So behavior is very flexible, but attitude is what kind of keeps it. So if behavior drives our results, so we can control our results by controlling our behavior, and we can control our behavior by controlling our attitude. How do we control our attitude? Or how do we affect our attitude? Controlling our thoughts, because it's our thoughts that drive our attitude. The challenge is we process close to 20,000 thoughts a day. And so it's very difficult really managing how we're thinking. Things that can really change our attitudes, but also how we learn new things, particularly skills and behaviors and so forth. And so there are three general ways, and usually there's a combination of more than one. The first is what we call learning through impact. And usually there's some type of event or situation that we experience and it has a profound effect. And we remember a lot of that through experience. I used to do this discussion when I did this discussion years ago with a lot of people who were older than me. Many of them remembered where they were when JFK was assassinated. They remember exactly what they were doing. I remember where I was and what I was doing when I found out about the space shuttle explosion back in 1986. And so there are different things. If you've ever been, let's say, had a tragic event, that kind of sticks with us and certain childhood experiences. So that's what we call learning through impact. The next is what we call learning through discovery, and it comes in two ways. One way is if we learn from a failure, or let's say if we make a mistake and we reflect on it, it kind of sticks with us, or we remember what we did and what we didn't do. Or if we put a lot of effort. The third way is what we call spaced repetition. And the best way to explain spaced repetition is to contrast it with what we call traditional learning. So traditional learning works this way. Let's say if you go to a half-day seminar, the next day, or a one-day workshop, the next day you'll remember about half of what was discussed. The day after that, about half of what's left over. The next day, about half. And about a 2-week period, you'll remember about 2% of what was covered. That's it, what you were paying attention to. So that's really traditional learning. The way spaced repetition works is, let's say if you were to read a passage, and you were to revisit it or listen to something about 15 minutes per day for 6 days in a row, you will retain 63% of that, or at least 63% for a period of 15 years to the rest of your life. Let me repeat. let's say if you were to recite something or you revisit a passage, um, and you do so for 15 minutes a day, 6 days in a row, you'll retain about at least 63% for a period of 15 years the rest of your life. This is how we learn a lot of lyrics to music um, and other things. If we think about any type of skill or any type of knowledge, it's a very powerful way of improving a skill through repetition, through practice, or improving our knowledge. And after a while, even if we don't use it for a while, a lot of it will come back to us. And so, if you really think about for those who have employees or subcontractors, especially when we're managing them, sometimes there's certain people that we have to say things more than once, and we wonder why. It's really the way the mind processes things. It's like you have to expect to say things more than once because we don't always retain things right away. So it's not just learning, but it's also um, a skill. It could be a physical skill. When I say physical, I mean like if you're trying to, let's say, play golf or bowling or something. So it could be hand-eye coordination type of skill, or any other type of skill as far as engaging clients or doing something with marketing. So the different when we talk about the and I'm gonna go back. I could go back. When we talk about these three, the spaced repetition is the one that we can control, whereas impact is more a passive approach. And so it can be a bit more efficient. So look at it from the perspective of changing a habit. And so if we are deliberate and we practice it, we're more likely to change a habit. Likewise, our attitudes or our thoughts. If we're very much deliberate and thinking a certain way, then that becomes a habit as well. Here's another thing. We kind of touched on this a little bit earlier, and it's about the things that influence our thoughts. Typically, because of either social media or even the news, bad news is often sensationalized. And so it is much more prevalent. So that means that the information that we take in tends to be more negative than positive. And even if we think about some of our, let's say, growing up, maybe not as much now, but even when we were in high school or college, uh, our friends were eager to hear about our mishaps and our challenges, whether we broke up with someone or something didn't go well. Then our successes, if we made the honor roll, our peers really weren't interested in hearing about that. So uh, people gravitate toward negative information. Likewise, we are more likely to be exposed to non-positive information. Uh, if we look at the 5 o'clock or the 6 o'clock news, it's what makes headlines. It's a car accident or a fire or some type of shooting, which means that at best, about 23% of the things that we take in is positive. So for the most part, we will be if we really engage the media, we will tend to be a bit more cynical or more negative than positive. And so therefore, we have to be deliberate in offsetting that with more positive influences. And those are the people, our relationships, people we surround ourselves with, the programming that we listen to, and the books that we read. And that's why one of the things that Mastermind serves is it's a area where more creativity, more innovative thinking takes place, as well as a more support structure. Now, having said that, I've spoken about positive versus negative in the context of, let's say, good versus bad. But even when we get back to how we define success, meaning our desired outcomes, It's our influences, we want them to be positively correlated with our desired outcomes. An example is, let's say if I wanted to get into real estate investing, if that's what I wanted to do, it would make sense for me to have more conversations with people who were investors and getting to know investors as opposed to people who have never invested in anything. And so that's what I mean by the positive correlation. You have power over your mind, not outside events. And once we realize this, you will find strength.